Hello, and welcome to the Global BIM Network's Information Collection on Demand webinar. My name is Alana Gluck, and I am Delivery Lead for the Global BIM Network Secretariat. I'm delighted to be your host and moderator for today's event. In March of 2021, more than 2,000 built environment professionals from over 90 countries across the world joined us for the Global BIM Summit. At the summit, we launched the Global BIM Network and a shared vision for a global digital built environment that delivers benefits for people and places. Since then, in August 2021, the Global BIM Network launched its key initiative, the Call for Knowledge. Through the Call for Knowledge, the network is seeking submissions of knowledge resources from across the global public sector. The purpose of the Call for Knowledge is to help the public sector share insight into local, national, and regional digital transformation journeys towards a digital built environment that brings benefits for people, places, and societies. The Call for Knowledge was also a call to action to all of those participating in the Global BIM Network to contribute to the development of its open access knowledge base, known as the Information Collection, which is located on our website, www.globalbim.org. During today's webinar, you will learn more about the network's information collection, how it is organized, and who can benefit from accessing the resources contained within it. We will also discuss the enhancement of the information collection as a result of the Call for Knowledge, including some key findings about the state of the globe in relation to digital transformation of the built environment. Joining me for today's conversation is Adam Matthews, Chair of the Global BIM Network Steering Committee, and Richard Lane, my colleague within the Secretariat. Hello, both. Hi. Thank you. You can turn your cameras off now. Before we begin, I want to provide a quick background to our discussion. The information collection is the knowledge base of the global network, which groups organizational, national, and regional resources shared by members of the network. Each entry in the collection has links to downloadable resources or official websites of governmental and non-governmental organizations that are actively championing innovation in public sector construction and infrastructure projects. By accessing the information collection, members of the network can share lessons learned about the introduction of digital into policy, public organizations, and publicly funded infrastructure projects. With that, I'd like to pass it to Adam to tell us more about the information collection and how it is organized. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Alana. Thanks very much for that. And hello, everybody, and good to be with you today. I'm going to talk through the information collection and describe how it's structured, how it's organized, and how you can use it as well. First of all, the information collection is a body of knowledge about how to introduce building information modeling into the public sector, how to introduce it into public policy, public infrastructure projects, and actually how to introduce it into the whole sector. It's organized into these four categories. First of all, public leadership, collaborative framework, communication and communities, capability and capacity development. I want to talk through what each of those four categories means and give an example as to what you can find in those particular areas. First of all, public leadership. It's about the role of the public sector. It's about the creation of a vision of national policies, national roadmaps. It's defining the purpose of a BIM program, ultimately. It defines in this category the value of BIM for the public sector and the private sector. It's defining the business case, ultimately, for how BIM can make a difference at the national level. It also describes the approach, the general strategy of how to introduce BIM into the public procurement level, into public organizations, and across the entire sector as well. Collaborative framework is about the development of standards and plans, regulatory and policy related activities that could be potential barriers or enablers for the collaborative use of building information modeling. In here, you'll find activities such as the artifacts such as the standards that are produced at the national level, and these could be aligned and referred to international standards as well. And in particular, this category includes information about guidance materials that can enable that broader capacity development. Communication and communities. Well, this category really relates to how we work with each other and how we engage with each other on the introduction of building information modeling. It speaks to how do we engage with stakeholders, industry stakeholders and partners. How does that conversation occur between industry and government? It also touches on how to create communities of practice, whether they be regional or discipline-based or national. And in particular in this area, you'll find information about national and organizational level, websites and social media, activities, newsletters, and events. The fourth and final category is an important one because ultimately we're looking to drive a change at scale. And capability and capacity development is about how we transition from pilot projects, learning across the public sector and private sector, but also the encouraging use of BIM across the public procurement organizations. And so this is a very important category which demonstrates how BIM has been implemented, how it's been introduced to develop those benefits. So we have case studies and measures such as ROI and training courses and other things like this. Now, lastly, the point to note here is that the way the information collection is structured is at these three distinct levels of hierarchy. First of all, you'll find those 4 pillars are available at these 3 levels: the national level, organization level, and project level. And at those distinct levels, it introduces information specific to those particular domains. So for example, at the national level, you can find information about national strategies, national roadmaps, training courses. Then at the organization level, we'll find things which are specific to that organizational level implementation of building information modeling. And again, at the project level, much more project level implementation aspects are found at the 3rd level. So that's how the information collection is structured and how it's organized and how you can use it. And now back to you. Thanks, Alana.
Thank you, Adam. Next, we'll hear from Richard, who will provide a summary overview of the information collection. Over to Richard.
Okay. Thanks, Alana. So our information collection was launched last year alongside the Global BIM Summit. And originally we started with around 60 resources from about 8 countries. And in the last year, we've been working to supplement that primarily through our Call for Knowledge program that Alana mentioned earlier. And as a result of various activities, we now have curated a total list of 400 resources. And these have come from partly the original collection, information that's been supplied by the Global Network Steering Committee, as well as some of our own desk research to fill in some of the gaps, and ultimately and primarily then items submitted in response to our Call for Knowledge. Now, there's quite a lot of resources there, so it's taking some time to publish the resources, and we'll continue to do that on an ongoing basis. In terms of how the current resources out of that 400 are distributed, Adam just mentioned about our 4 pillars of how we categorize different information resources. And you can see from this chart that we have a good distribution across all of the 4 pillars of our strategic framework. And as you might expect, with a focus on public sector implementation of BIM, we have a large concentration of resources around public leadership. So that those policies and strategies and program documents that the public sector produces in support of national and regional transformation, as well as then a strong emphasis on the collaborative framework, the guidance and standards and technical documents that describe what BIM is for a particular country or organization. But then in addition to that, we have a good number of resources in those other categories of communications and communities and capability and capacity development as well. Now, Adam mentioned the 3 levels of national, organizational and project level that we also use to organize our resources. And in fact, we've gone a step further and included some additional levels of hierarchy in this as well. And again, you can see that the majority of our documents in the collection today are at the national level, related to those national programs of change being led in the main by the public sector. We have a number of resources at the organizational level, typically linked to an individual ministry or public procurer. But we are a little bit short now. One of our gaps at the moment, and one area we'd like to see more resources on is at the project level, particularly with project case studies from a client-centric perspective. In addition to that, we see resources that have been submitted at a regional level, Europe and Latin America as an example, and also reports and artifacts that are global in their nature and description as well. And in terms of the countries that are represented in the information collection, we have a wide range of diverse submissions from different countries across the world. In fact, 60 countries are represented within the 400 resources in the information collection that we've curated now. And you can see those countries listed on screen now. And from the map, you can see good coverage in Europe and the Americas. But again, we would like to see stronger representation with resources from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. If we look at the geographic distribution of our resources in terms of the number of resources that have been submitted, about half of the collection is from European origins. And again, that matches with the idea that about half of the 60 countries represented in the collection are European as well. We have good representation of resources from Latin America and Oceania. But I think it would be good if we were able to continue to grow the resources from North America, Africa, and Asia as well. And with that, I'll hand back to Alana.
Thank you, Richard. Now I'll invite Adam to rejoin us on screen to start our Q&A. Thank you both again for your presentations. First question is to Adam. To start from first principles, why has the Global BIM Network created the information collection knowledge base?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that we recognized in the global network that there was a knowledge gap for the public sector to share best practice, to understand how other countries are introducing BIM into their public policy, into their public procurement organization, and also into their public sector infrastructure projects. So we recognized that we needed a way to bring all of that information together into one place, and that hadn't been done before. So I think the first reason for it is because it was a gap, and it was something that we needed to inform each other within the public sector. I think the second thing is also that it helps to inform the private sector as well as to what the current status of information and knowledge is on the introduction of BIM into their country, into their projects. And so I think that's also a very helpful thing. So overall, its purpose is to help address the knowledge gap that the public sector has, to share best practices between each other, to potentially align and accelerate that knowledge development globally, but also to be inclusive of the private sector.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adam. Next, we have a question for Richard. Richard, what have the challenges been in curating the information collection?
Thanks, Alana. Well, firstly, I think the biggest challenge has been the volume of information submitted. We've curated now 400 resources, and it takes considerable time to review those resources, to categorize them and organize them, and identify the resources that are appropriate for our information collection. And then the second challenge, and one that's kind of compounded on top of the volume, is language. We want a diverse range of resources within our information collection, and we want them in their original form. So we have resources from as many different languages as we have countries almost in the collection, and it takes some time to review and understand and organize documents when they are presented in native language form. So we've relied heavily on web-based translators to help us to decipher the information and find those valuable resources and categorize all of the resources that have been submitted.
Wonderful, thank you. Next, we have a question for both of you, but I'll start with Richard. Richard, were there any key insights from the curation of the information collection?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest insights that we got from curating this collection is that national transformation programs with public leadership are increasingly common. They're long-term programs, typically of a duration of 5 to 10 years, and they are underpinned by public strategies and supported by policy and, where appropriate, legislation as well. And within those programs, we see this definition of a common collaborative framework as a key area of focus, which is underpinned by standards. And we see international standards being an increasingly important element of that standardization of that framework. And I can show you that as an example. This slide shows the number of countries that we found in our curation of the Call for Knowledge resources that have adopted international standards related to BIM. In this instance, we've taken ISO 19650 Part 2 as an example. Other standards are relevant to BIM, but this was a useful one to understand the range of international standards adoption within different countries. And you can see that 44 countries have adopted this particular international standard as part of their implementation of BIM, with a further 5 countries having the standard in development and another 5 evaluating or recommending the use of ISO 19650 and other international standards as a part of their collaborative framework.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Adam, do you have any thoughts on the curation of the information collection or on Richard's findings?
Well, I think to the last point that Richard raised there, it's clear there's a significant shift that's occurred in the last 5 years, which is no time at all, really. There's been this tremendous shift towards public sector, private sector, national level BIM programs around the world that have had a significant effect, and we can see a lot of commonality as Richard just showed. So I think that's a very important point. The other observation I would pick up around the information collection is that it helps to identify where there are gaps in the knowledge base. One of the earlier slides that Richard shared was around the profile of the information within the collection overall, and there's gaps specifically around the project level knowledge resources and some of those capacity building elements as well. So there are some gaps there that we would really, I think, be keen to help hear from the audience to have those gaps addressed, and also geographically. So again, if there are some countries that are missing from the knowledge base, then we'd be very keen to have them contribute their knowledge resources.
Fantastic. Thank you both, and thank you for participating in the Q&A. Adam, can I invite you to give us some closing thoughts before we finish the webinar today?
Yeah, sure. I think at the beginning we talked about how we felt this was a gap, that there wasn't something like this that could pull together, curate this knowledge that was relevant for both the public sector and also the private sector. So now it's available. As Richard said, we're progressively loading those information resources on over the next period, but it's available to use. So please do use it. I think will be the first message. Do go online and explore the information collection as a whole. If you haven't already, please do also join the network, the global network. You can go online and there's a button to click on the homepage there to sign up. So do that also. It is open, as we said earlier, to both the public sector and the private sector. So do that. And finally, just to come back to the previous point around gaps, be that geographic gaps or gaps in the information collection at those different hierarchy levels, or one of the pillars, then suggest an update. Do go online. There's also a place you can do that on the website. So we look forward to using it and hearing from you. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Thanks, Adam. Thank you both for your time. And thank you to those watching from across the world. Have a lovely day.